Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into one of the most wild technological milestones of our time. We're looking at the ultimate collision of man versus machine through the incredible story of AlphaGo. For decades, AI had been inching closer and closer to human capability, but things shifted into absolute overdrive when researchers decided to tackle an ancient game that almost everyone thought computers were still decades away from cracking. So let's just get right into it and see what actually happens when the absolute limits of human genius go head-to-head with cold, calculating code. You know, the European Go champion Fan Hui hit the nail completely on the head. He said, "It looks like a mirror. I see the Go, I also see myself." And that's exactly it. When a machine finally masters the single most complex game in human history, it doesn't just show us an impressive string of code. Actually, it's more like a reflection of our very humanity. The story we're exploring today isn't just about a computer winning a board game. It's about how this artificial intelligence forced the greatest minds alive to completely question their lifelong expertise, and by doing so, literally expanded our own human potential. To really grasp the magnitude of this, we have to look at the game itself. In chess, you have about 20 possible moves per turn. Go, on the other hand, you're looking at about 200 possible moves per turn. For decades, this ancient game, where you just place simple black and white stones to surround territory, was considered the absolute holy grail of artificial intelligence. It was just too incredibly broad, too complex for the traditional AI approaches that easily conquered chess. Let's put that complexity into perspective for a second. Get this. The number of possible board configurations in Go is actually greater than the number of atoms in the observable universe. There's literally no way a computer could just brute force calculate a win like they did with chess. They couldn't just scan every possible future outcome. To win at Go, these machines needed something they really aren't supposed to have. They needed human-like intuition. So, how on earth did the developers at DeepMind build intuition into a machine? Well, they created deep neural networks designed to mimic the web of neurons in our own brains. AlphaGo basically learned to play in 3 distinct phases. First, it just mimicked human amateur games, 100,000 of them downloaded right off the internet. Then it went into self-play, playing against slightly different versions of itself millions and millions of times. And finally, it learned from its errors. It wasn't just following a script, it was quite literally learning. Its digital brain relies on 3 main components, all working together in perfect sync. First up is the policy network, which imitates high-level human players to quickly scan the board and find the interesting spots to play. Then the value net steps in to evaluate the absolute probability of winning from that specific position. And finally, the tree search looks ahead through different variations of future moves. But here is the fascinating part. AlphaGo doesn't care at all about the margin of victory. It just wants to maximize the probability of winning, even if it's only by a single point. With this wild new architecture fully in place, DeepMind needed a human test subject. Enter Fan Hui, the European champion. When they invited him to their London offices, human skepticism was naturally off the charts. Fan Hui's mindset was super straightforward. He said, "I think I will win the game with AlphaGo because it's just a program." He fully expected to walk in and easily crush a mere computer. I mean, professional Go players have an almost spiritual, lifelong connection to the game. A machine couldn't possibly understand that nuance, right? Well, reality check. Instead of an easy win, Fan Hui suffered a devastating 5-0 sweep. It was an absolute shock to the system. This was the very first time a professional human player had ever lost to a machine. And for Fan Hui, this wasn't just a tough day at the office. It sent him into a deep existential crisis. The psychological weight of the AI's play was so intense that during the matches, he physically had to step outside just to remember how to breathe. He later said he just didn't understand himself anymore. DeepMind had achieved the impossible, but to push their algorithm to its absolute breaking point, they needed the ultimate boss fight. Enter Lee Sedol. He's an 18-time world champion, a 9-dan professional. To put it simply, he is to Go what Roger Federer is to tennis. In South Korea, he's a national hero, known universally for his incredibly creative and brilliant fighting style on the board. Even with the news of Fan Hui's defeat out there, the global Go community and Lee Sedol himself remained supremely confident. They still viewed the AI as this cold, emotionless thing, totally incapable of matching elite human creativity. Sedol was absolutely sure of himself. His prediction heading into the match, he said, "I don't think that it will be a very close match. Maybe 5-0 for me or maybe 4-1. The whole world tuned in, fully expecting the great human master to just dismantle the machine. But man, the reality hit incredibly hard. The psychological crucible of this match proved to be overwhelmingly intense as Lee Sedol dropped the first 3 games straight. Imagine the pressure. He was sitting across from a human surrogate who was just placing stones for a completely unreadable, emotionless opponent, all while carrying the immense weight of human pride entirely on his shoulders. The pressure was suffocating. By Game 3, the shock from the commentators had turned into this chilling realization that humanity was facing an entirely new kind of intelligence. The absolute defining moment of this whole technological breakthrough happened in Game 2, with what simply became known as Move 37. This was the turning point. Out of nowhere, AlphaGo played a bizarre fifth-line shoulder hit. The professional commentators were instantly baffled. It went against literally everything taught in thousands of years of Go strategy. Humans simply do not play that move. At first glance, it genuinely looked like the machine had made a terrible mistake. But here's the crazy part. It wasn't a mistake at all. AlphaGo's own internal systems calculated there was only a 1 in 10,000 probability a human would ever play that move. The AI had moved completely beyond its initial human programming, way beyond the amateur games it first studied. It shattered conventional wisdom to demonstrate true alien creativity. It was a move of pure, beautiful, non-human innovation. The shock of Move 37 literally, physically, and emotionally rattled Lee Sedol. One match commentator noted, Sedol just slapped himself on the side of the head. The psychological toll was just profound. Sedol was actually forced to get up, walk away from the board, and pace around outside just to smoke and gather himself. Eventually, he had to return only to resign the game, completely crushed by the sadness and pressure of facing an unstoppable intelligence. But you can never count the human spirit out. In Game 4, facing a humiliating 3-0 sweep, Lee Sedol sat down with literally nothing left to lose. He fought through the intense psychological torment, desperately looking for a weakness in the machine. And then he played a miraculous wedge maneuver right in the center of the board, Move 78, a move so utterly brilliant that professional commentators immediately dubbed it the God move. And beautifully mirroring the machine's earlier genius, AlphaGo's internal evaluation systems determined that a human had only a 1 in 10,000 chance of finding that exact brilliant play. Lee Sedol, pushed to the absolute brink by a superintelligent AI, had reached deep into his own mind and pulled out a level of creativity that perfectly matched the machine's standard of genius. That sudden burst of human innovation completely shocked the system. Move 78 exposed a hidden, deep vulnerability in AlphaGo's neural network. It forced the AI into these weird blind spots, basically tricky lumps of unmapped knowledge. Suddenly, the machine began making delusional evaluations of the board, completely misunderstanding who was actually winning. It started playing nonsensical, slack moves that humans easily recognized as terrible mistakes, causing its internal win probability to just completely drop off a cliff. And because of that brilliant stroke of human genius, Lee Sedol secured the victory in Game 4. It sparked massive celebrations all over the world. Honestly, it felt like a total triumph for humanity. It was redemption not just for Lee Sedol personally, who, by the way, smiled so broadly as the AI officially resigned, but for the resilience, art, and beauty of the human spirit when it's pushed to its absolute breaking point by a seemingly invincible opponent. Ultimately, AlphaGo did win the 5th game, taking the whole series 4-1. But the true impact goes so far beyond that final score. The AI didn't destroy this ancient game, it elevated it. It redefined thousands of years of completely unquestioned Go strategy. It proved definitively that machines can exhibit true original creativity. And, most importantly, it showed that AI can dramatically expand our own capabilities. Lee Sedol himself admitted that his human understanding of the game was vastly expanded just by playing against the machine. This whole event brilliantly illustrates a broader lesson, one that's perfectly captured by chess legend Garry Kasparov. He said, a good human plus a machine is the best combination. As we look toward the massive future of artificial intelligence across fields like medicine, science, and climate modeling, this explainer highlights an absolutely critical takeaway. Technology is most powerful not as a terminator or some kind of human replacement, but as an incredible collaborative tool to help us push way past our own boundaries. So, wrapping things up here, as these deep neural networks continue to evolve, self-learn, and tackle the world's most incredibly complex challenges, we want to leave you with this final provocative thought. When you look into the mirror of artificial intelligence, how will it expand your own human potential? What incredible, unimaginable breakthroughs are we going to achieve when we finally face the machine, not as an opponent, but together? Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating journey with us.